In this video, I want to walk you through a cyber risk forecast. This is the one for March 2026. I just want to give you a feel for the level of depth and detail that is in every risk forecast. Every risk forecast begins with the executive summary for the CISOs. This is usually a couple of pages. It's in paragraph text form, and it is giving you a highlight of what is covered in the entire report. So if you only have a few minutes and one thing to read to come up to speed, you go for the executive summary. The next thing that I always include is the implications for CISOs. This turns the executive summary into a what do I need to do now conversation, giving you actionable recommendations, addressing all of the risks that have been discussed. I also include the date reference and the method. This is the date that the report was run and an explanation of the methodology. If at any point you need to have this conversation with a third party or an executive to explain how was this model and forecast compiled, that's what the methodology is. Now, there are four appendices, as you see on the left-hand side here. There are four appendices that go with the executive summary. The first talks about the top risks. The next one covers geopolitical events. Then there's a forecast, discussion, and a financial impact summary. So let's dive into these. In Appendix A, we have two panels for every industry. As I scroll, you'll see that we have financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and professional services listed here. So let's jump in. The first panel covers the top 5 attacks during this attacks forecast run. So if this was run in February 28th, it's looking over the last 30 days and 60 days to do the forecast for the next 30, 60, and 90. So based on what has been publicly reported, we will identify what are the top attacks. We will explain why they are top attacks in the industry. What are the signals that we have seen that drive us to this conclusion? And then what's the forecast for the next 30, 60, 90 days? Is the risk going to fluctuate up and down, or is it stable? And then the quantification gives you a range, numbers, and labels for what the likelihood band is for that attack. The second panel that every industry gets is for the impact and controls view. So we've split the risk quantification into two views, top attacks and the likelihood, and then the financial impact and controls. And so you'll see that the first column we give you is the financial impact per incident, and that is a range established on what's already being publicly reported and what the forecast is calling will happen, whether it's going to increase or decrease. Then we have the primary drivers. Why is that cost set at the level that it is? And then we go into the controls. What are the most effective controls for mitigating this cost? Where should I focus my attention? Where should I spend my money, in other words? And then I give you a value for how effective that control is. We like to think that all controls are very effective, and that's not in fact the case. So that's why that is there. And then, as I said, every industry gets a set of two panels in that appendices. In Appendix B, I give you the geopolitical events, what is driving cyber risk. So here we get the event exposure view. So this covers the top geopolitical events. It gives you a description of what the event is, what are the mechanisms that are driving that, and why organizations are exposed. In other words, okay, there's a Russian invasion of Ukraine and NATO tensions. Why would that be affecting me in my organization and my sector? So I give you those kinds of explanations for the top events and attacks. The second panel that I give you is the impact, timing, and the defense view. For each industry that is affected by one of these events, I give you the expected time horizon, looking at the next 30, 60, 90 days, how that risk looks for that industry. Then I also give you leading indicators that CISOs can monitor. Is there anything happening within your organization, within your network, that you can look for in the logs that you can monitor, any kinds of activity, or is there anything externally that you can be monitoring for this related to this event? I give you a confidence level of the forecast, and then I'll also give you defensive implications. What are some of the things that you should be doing defensively based on your risk to that global risk indicator? Appendix C is a 30, 60, 90-day forecast discussion. So it's taking everything that's we talked about in the report, and we're looking forward 30, 60, 90 days, having a conversation about what are the immediate threats, what should we be looking at 60 and 90. This is here for planning purposes so that you can have that conversation around planning in a 30, 60, 90-day or quarterly type process. And then Appendix D is a financial impact summary. Here's where we pull up, based on financial impact across the report, what are those things that have the most likely highest impact to an organization, and what that is in financial terms based on known reported incidents and values. So these are not hypotheses we pulled out of the air. Absolutely everything in this report is documented, verifiable, and can be checked against the open source where we found it. And we actually give that kind of as a disclosure at the end of the report. And so I don't know if you can see it, but this report is page 97, 98 pages long, and that doesn't include the front matter. This is the typical length of every report, and this is the layout for every report. If you have any questions, feel free. Don't hesitate to reach out. Use my contact page and send me a question, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.